I'm here with a special guest. We are here for a digital learning network with the Galena Park School District. And I know we are talking with 6th to 8th grade students who are, the theme of their studies is space camp. So I'm here with a guest who goes to space camp. Astronaut Scott Kelly has been to space 3 times. He flew once aboard the space shuttle on STS-103. Then he flew a second time as the commander of the space shuttle during STS-118. And most recently, he flew aboard the International Space Station as the commander of Expedition 26. And he was there for 159 days. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's great to be here, Miko. Thank you.
All right, and we're ready to go ahead and go with your questions. So, kids?
So here we have Jacob. Jacob, go ahead. What would happen if the Soyuz or the space shuttle had an engine failure or a problem, and if y'all weren't docked to the space station?
For the space shuttle has various ways of compensating if an engine fails. If it was to fail on the launch pad after liftoff, certainly before liftoff, the shuttle wouldn't actually lift off the pad. But if it was after liftoff, in the first part of the ascent, you would come back to the Kennedy Space Center and land. As you get faster and higher, your options to abort improve to where the next option would be potentially landing in at a landing site in Africa. And later on in the 8.5-minute ascent, you could actually do what's called an abort to orbit, where you might get into a lower orbit, not the one that you intended to go into, but something that is safe. For the Soyuz, again, it depends on where that engine failure happens, where in the launch trajectory it happens. In the most severe case, the Soyuz has an escape system that'll basically rocket the capsule away from the larger rocket and allow the crew to land under the parachute. Of course, as you get, just like the space shuttle, as you get faster and higher, you have better options. And in some cases, if the engine fails very late in the ascent, you don't have to really do anything at all. You have enough capability in the remaining engines to get to where you need to go.
Alrighty, that's a wonderful answer. Thank you, Scott Kelly. We're going to go ahead and go to the next question. Galena Park ISD, if you can just make sure you can speak as loudly and clearly into the microphone as you can, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, my name is Daniel, and how was it like during the launches? Like, how'd you feel?
It's interesting. On my first flight on the space shuttle, on the launch pad weighs about 5 million pounds and has about 7.5 million pounds of thrust that launches it into space. And on your first flight into space, it really gets your attention. It feels like you feel every pound of that 7.5 million pounds of thrust. You get the sense that you're going somewhere. You're not sure where. You're going there in a hurry, and you're not coming back to Florida. I mean, it just leaps off the launch pad. The Soyuz is a little bit different for a number of reasons. It doesn't have the same amount of thrust, although it does have a higher acceleration, so you feel higher g-forces later in the ascent. And then the other difference with the Soyuz is that when the second and third stages of the Soyuz light, when the engines light, they do it after the previous stage has shut down. So at least in the case of the second and the third stage, so you feel like you're accelerating, and then you stop accelerating, and you kind of go to like a 0G kind of feeling, and then the engines kick on, and it's really like a real kick in the pants, so to speak, that it starts accelerating you out again. So there is some differences. It's very exciting. Time certainly, and certainly a lot of fun too.
Very good question. And also, there's some significant differences in the landing of those two vehicles as well. You want to quickly describe
Yeah,
those?
the landing of the Soyuz and the shuttle are much different. The shuttle lands kind of like an airplane. It is much more gentle, and it's because it was designed to be a reusable vehicle that brought potentially sensitive scientific experiments and other sensitive equipment home. Not to mention the vehicle is somewhat sensitive because we needed to reuse it. So the Soyuz is much different. The Soyuz enters as a capsule. It lands under a parachute and lands in the desert. Um, the shuttle landing is much more gentle. It's actually flown by the commander. The Soyuz is generally speaking all automatic and is more like whereas the shuttle's like an airplane, the Soyuz is more like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. It's a very dynamic. We call it dynamic ride and very exciting.
Next question.
I wanted to know how long does it take to get out of the atmosphere and get into space?
Well, space is defined as this like 50-mile barrier, and it takes several minutes to get to that altitude, both in the space shuttle and in the Soyuz. It doesn't actually feel like you're in space until the engines of those vehicles cut off. And that's when you go from this acceleration, getting you to a very fast speed, to where you actually feel zero gravity. And that takes, on the shuttle, 8.5 minutes. On the Soyuz, a little over 9 minutes before before you're, not only are you in space, but you feel like you're in space because you're then floating.
And we're looking at now, that was just a video clip of a Soyuz launch. Next question.
Do you ever get used to the feeling of going into space and landing from coming back?
Having flown 3 times, I would say I haven't gotten used to it. There are aspects of it that get more comfortable. I flew twice on the Soyuz or twice on the shuttle and once on the Soyuz. So, it's only one of those vehicles did I fly on twice. But I think it would take me many flights before I got completely comfortable with either the launch or the landing of either the shuttle or the Soyuz.
So I don't think he's done.
I'd like to have the opportunity to get very comfortable.
Next question.
What do you like about being an astronaut?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
What do you like about being an astronaut?
What do I like about being an astronaut? Well, certainly, flying in space is a great part of the job. But to me, the best part about being an astronaut is that flying in space is very challenging. It's very difficult, and there's a lot of satisfaction to be had by being a part of something that is very challenging, very hard, working hard at it, working with a team, and then being successful and proud of your success. So, it's not the individual, launching in space or landing or looking at the Earth or floating. It's being a part of something that's much larger than yourself, something that you consider important, something that you work with a team, and then you're proud of your success. And when I go around the country and talk about the space program and talk to kids, what I say is that same type of satisfaction and challenge that we experience in the space program, you can also experience in your own lives, whether it's with your schoolwork. If it's if you find something that's difficult and you work hard at it, then you can be proud of your success, and you can do that with your schoolwork and sports and other careers that you may decide to pursue. I encourage you to pursue something that's challenging, something that's not necessarily easy for you. Challenge yourself with your schoolwork, with what you decide to do in your life, and then be proud of yourselves when you're successful.
Hi, my name is Miracle. I'd like to know what type of training do you have to go through to be an astronaut?
It's, to become an astronaut, NASA looks for people that certainly have the appropriate technical background in science or math or engineering, some technical field, but also, people that have proven themselves in whatever job they're currently in. In my case, I was a military test pilot prior to becoming an astronaut. The selection process is pretty it's pretty selective because there's only so many people here and a lot of people that want the job. But I wouldn't discourage anyone from pursuing this as a career just because there aren't a whole lot of opportunities right now, because obviously somebody has to do it. And people that are very motivated and work hard a lot of times have this kind of opportunity. So I wouldn't be discouraging to anyone that wanted to do this just because there's only limited opportunities at this point. You never know what might be in the future. Once you become an astronaut, the training is pretty extensive, and I've been here for 16 years, and I still sometimes say to my daughters that I have a class, and my 8-year-old looks at me and she's like, why do you have a class, Dad? You're old. You shouldn't be having a class. But as an astronaut, you train, not every day, but all the time. And some of that training is academic training. Some of it's studying on your own. Some of it's doing, robotic operations or training for launch and landing in a simulator, or training in a pool in a big bulky spacesuit for spacewalks. So, I feel like I've been going to school continuously since kindergarten, and that's over 40 years. So I guess the message there is that if you want to be successful in life and you want to have a career that challenges you, you never stop learning. You always need to consider yourself a student of something, and that's the way you continue to improve and increases your chances of being successful in life.
That's also a very good message that you talk about, not to just be discouraged because of the opportunity, but also be, look at your background. I mean, you were a son of 2 police officers, and, you know, becoming an astronaut wasn't necessarily, something that was right there laid out in the stars. I mean, you actually had to work for that.
Yeah, I came from a blue collar family. Essentially, my brother and I were the first generations in our family to go to college, and being an officer in the military and a pilot was not something that people really did from where I was from at that time. So it it was basically my brother and I becoming astronauts. We basically had the same opportunity as many kids out there, which basically I think what I'm trying to say is we didn't have any extra special help to do this because of the background that we came from.
Exactly. So bottom line is, it's up to you. Good question. And next one.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kennedy. I'd like to know, when you're in space, are you ever afraid of what you might discover there?
Um, I think people that are astronauts are explorers at heart, and they're looking for discoveries, and not really afraid of what they might find. As far as like big surprises, if you're referring to things that might, you might have seen on a science fiction movie or something, or that kind of stuff that might scare you. Now, we actually don't really think about that in space. Certainly, Certainly, there are some things that worry you and might be a little bit scary. Most astronauts are more scared about making mistakes than they are about their physical well-being on the rocket. Most of the times in space that are the riskiest are the times where you're most focused on what you're doing. So you really don't have time to be scared. You're focused on your job and completing that, and not really worrying about what could happen if things go bad.
Thank you.
Oh, who inspired you to become an astronaut and a pilot, or were you following your brother's path?
My brother and I were both in the same astronaut class, and although he was in the Navy a year before me, it was really my idea to join the Navy and be a pilot, and he kind of stole that from me. As far as inspiration, I just thought that I do remember reading the book "The Right Stuff." It's called. It's about the early test pilots in the jet age, when we first broke the speed of sound, and about the early astronauts. And I remember reading that book, and while I was reading it, I'm thinking, I think I can do this. This seems really exciting, but I didn't see anything in that book that made those pilots or those astronauts really, stand out above what I thought I had the capability to achieve. Maybe I was being naive at the time, but I was certainly a dreamer like a lot of kids, and I thought, hey, I could probably do this. And I thought it would be really fun to be a pilot of a high-performance jet airplane. And I thought to myself, what would be the most challenging type of flying? And I, figured it would be landing on an aircraft carrier, especially at night. So I decided to be a Navy pilot.
Thanks.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Ariana. I would like to know how you felt when you were landing.
How I felt when I was where?
Landing back to Earth.
On my last landing in the space shuttle, I was actually flying it. So, like I said before, I was really focused on doing my job. You feel a little bit dizzy. You haven't been exposed to gravity for, in that case, 13 days. So your what's called the vestibular system, your balance system, is not normal. It's not how it is on Earth, because it uses gravity to know which way is up and down, and to stabilize yourself. So when you're coming back into gravity, you're dizzy. And in this case, I'm trying to fly the space shuttle, so it's somewhat challenging. Certainly very exciting, because you're at the end of this very challenging and exciting and time in your life. And the Soyuz, though, is different. It's much more dynamic. When the drogue chute opens, it has several parachutes. One of them is called the drogue chute, that stabilizes the vehicle and pulls out the main chute. And when that opens, it's kind of like the wildest roller coaster you could ever imagine. It really, the Soyuz really moves around and probably feels a lot worse than it really is, because of like I said, your balance system is somewhat messed up. So it really tumbles, and it feels like it's more than a minute. As you can see on the TV here, they show the drogue chute, and this is the main chute, the main parachute opening. Once the main parachute opens, it gets pretty stable, but then when it hits the ground, it's like, again, kind of like a car crash. If you could imagine, like a race car driver, when they actually flip the car and it's kind of tumbling through the air down the track, actually feels a lot like what I would imagine that to feel like.
Exhilarating. Do we have any more questions?
Thank you.
My name is Dean, and what I want to know is, are astronauts affected by deep vein thrombosis, otherwise known as blood clots? since they aren't using their muscles too often?
Yeah, that so the deep vein thrombosis that I think you hear about people experiencing. Um, you know, sometimes people on airplanes, I guess there's anecdotal information that sitting for long periods of time could cause those type of blood clots. You know, I don't think there's any history of us having, certainly not any history of us having anything like that in space. But in some ways, and I'm just kind of guessing here, you might be less susceptible to that kind of thing in space because in space, you don't have gravity pushing all the blood down from your upper body into your lower body. And I think that kind of phenomenon is potentially due to, like, if you're sitting a long time, you have, and you're not moving around. Potentially, the blood in your lower extremities are kind of, a little bit more stagnant than they might otherwise would be. So, in space, where everything floats, the blood in your body is distributed, perfectly evenly, and is not affected by gravity. So I think there's probably less of a chance to have something like that in orbit or in space.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you for that answer, Scott Kelly. We are going to do one more question from Galena Park ISD and then wrap up from there. So, one more question. Speak loud and clearly into the microphone, and we'll go from there.
Good morning, my name is Jocelyn, and I wanted to know, when you finally reach outer space and you're able to gaze at the magnificent Earth in person, that must be so surreal, and how does that make you feel?
I can, on my last flight, I had 6 months of looking at the Earth, and it's very beautiful. Have certain memories of certain parts of the Earth. On my first flight on STS 103, we launched at night, and I can remember turning to the commander of the space shuttle and asking him what. I said something. I forget exactly how I put it, but I was like, "What is that?" It was just so amazing looking, and basically, it was the sunrise and then the Earth, and it was just this brilliant blue color, like the bluest thing I've ever seen in my life, perfectly clear. Just the clarity of it was impressive. Just absolutely breathtaking. And then, it's interesting. The places on Earth that are the most beautiful are the places that are kind of the least habitable. The water. Most of the planet is water. It's kind of surprising that we decided to call it planet Earth and we didn't call it planet water. But anyway, so the water is very beautiful in certain areas, and as well as the deserts are incredibly beautiful.
That's a wrap. Good questions, guys. And you heard it here. Dream big, challenge yourself, succeed. It's up to you.